And if people rise up now and say this social justice thing, this language policing, this political correctness, safe spaces, trigger warnings, microaggressions, this stuff is horse shit. And if enough people smash its stranglehold on the public square, it will never recover. It will never come back in like this again.
Despite what Milo said here, 4 months later, his Twitter account was permanently banned. This occurred due to the current climate of political correctness and the inability of progressive liberal leftists to handle dissenting opinions that run counter to mainstream narratives. In short, Twitter is run by people who cannot tolerate conservative viewpoints. These moral authoritarians will use censorship and appeal to government to introduce hate speech laws to criminalize those who criticize or disagree with them.
I think it's important to recognize that harassment is, as someone had mentioned, it's not just what is legal and illegal, right? Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck.
The path to tyrannical oblivion is paved with speech control of the citizenry.
Does freedom of speech protect offensive speech?
Does freedom of speech do what?
Protect offensive speech?
It doesn't matter if freedom of speech. Someone was offended. That's against the law.
Political correctness is merely the catalyst for the social justice movement. It's the foundational cornerstone that enables its maturation. Social justice is simply the inevitable political manifestation of political correctness.
It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Social justice may be something that many of us can see through as a Marxist cult-like ideology that is determined to undermine Western civilization, but we should never look upon these people as merely a disturbed fringe with zero credibility. If we dismiss them out of hand as a bunch of misguided extremists who will never be taken seriously, we are underestimating their ideological conviction and potentially allowing them to control our future through the consent of silence. After all, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
You should step down! If that is what you think about being a pastor, you should step down! It is not about creating an intellectual space! It is not! Do you understand that? It's about creating a home here!
Because the reality is, they are being taken seriously. That's the truly disturbing part. Not by people like you or me, and perhaps not even by the majority of people living in the Western world, but by the media and the political establishment. That's really all they need. They don't need complete and utter widespread acceptance. They just need three things. Number one, enough freshly indoctrinated youth emerging from the public school systems or universities they are slowly gaining control over. Number two, the sympathies of leftist politicians happy to use these SJWs as useful idiots to introduce draconian laws against political dissent. And finally, number three, a mainstream media who buys into their progressive garbage. While we may be currently able to destroy social justice arguments as easy as swatting flies right now, what we're currently fighting against is simply its latent stage. The true developmental manifestation is yet to completely present itself because it's still incubating. Milo is right when he says social justice is failing in its current form, but it's far from dead. In fact, I would argue it's just getting started. It's evolving and remodulating itself into something new. We can now see it migrating like a virus, from third-level education down to the secondary and even primary school levels. 4-year-old children are now being taught about how gender is a social construct in schools and that their gender is a choice. The indoctrination is beginning earlier, and even racial segregation and white guilt and white privilege are being taught openly in some New York elementary schools. These kids are coming home crying, telling their parents that they are guilty for slavery and that they're bad people. This is, of course, child abuse, but the really sad reality is, while many of these children will one day get the help they need to be deprogrammed from this brainwashing, not all of them will.
We are all biased and prejudiced. All of us are. By nature, being human beings, we are biased and prejudiced, conscious or unconscious. We are. Adults teach children by commission and omission, especially when you don't talk about it, then we are teaching children to be racist. If we don't talk about it, we are teaching them to be racist.
Because Marxist gender and racial studies about intersectionality and other such bullshit don't provide you with any real career prospects outside of flipping burgers and working as a barista, these disaffected youths will be forced to become the next generation of Marxist professors, or worse, enter politics where they will be openly advocating for the rest of society to subscribe to their totalitarian ideals.
I am a feminist and proud to call myself one. We need to speak out in support of gender equality. And gentlemen, we need to get comfortable identifying ourselves as feminists.
So what does a society's justice system look like when it's taken over by social justice? Well, you get something that looks a lot like the current Canadian justice system. On July 22nd, Mustafa Uriyar was convicted of rape of Mandy Gray in a Toronto court based on zero credible evidence. They'd been dating for some time, and one evening in January of 2015, Gray sent him a text saying, "Come drink and then we can have hot sex." In court, they both stated that they went home together, got undressed, and got into bed. However, Gray claims she was sexually assaulted, something Uriyar obviously denies. On July 22nd, the conviction of sexual assault was made. The only evidence provided was Gray's testimony. This was nothing more than a he said, she said type deal. What's more, Gray's testimony was a little bit foggy. She never mentioned the text she sent to Uriyar, which he was able to verify from his phone. Gray even deleted texts between herself and Uriyar. Now, he maintains the sex was consensual and that Gray had been sexually aggressive the entire night, even groping him in the bar. There's just not enough evidence here to reach the conclusion that Uriyar was guilty beyond reasonable doubt, as the verdict suggests. Now, I don't have evidence either way, I'm just saying the evidence is far from conclusive here. So how did this happen? Well, it all starts to make sense when you consider the political biases of the judge. Provincial Court Judge Marvin Zucker, who quoted numerous well-known radical feminists throughout the proceedings, including Susan Brown Miller and Catherine McKinnon, and we know the issues they had with male and female sexual relations. McKinnon is quoted as saying, "To be rapeable, a position that is social and not biological, defines what a woman is, and male and female are created through the eroticization of dominance and submission." And Brown Miller has said, "Rape is nothing more or less than a conscious process of intimidation by which all men keep all women in a state of fear." So this is where this judge's position lies. I mean, this is merely a plea to emotion right here. This is an attempt to elicit an emotional verdict from the jury. This is a show trial, nothing more. Marvin Zucker's own career betrays his objectivity, having written such books as The Law is Not for Women, a legal handbook for women. I guess we'll just have to ignore the child custody and divorce settlement biases and sentencing gap then. Here's a segment from Lauren Southern of Rebel Media quoting from Zucker's own work.
Marriage, in the legal sense only, is a purchase. The buyer is the man who commits himself for the rest of his life to provide food, shelter, clothing, and medical attention in return for what he has acquired, which is explicitly the exclusive use of his bride's vagina. He is out of his part of the deal only if some other male uses his property.
Zucker completely dismissed Uriyar's defense, calling it a total fabrication. But what evidence did he have that it was fabricated? The truth is, Uriyar's defense didn't correspond with Zucker's political perspectives, so it was rejected. This is social justice in the legal system, the court of public opinion over objective reality. Uriyar was guilty the moment Gray made her claim. No further evidence was needed for Judge Marvin Zucker beyond her testimony. Now, thankfully, Uriyar is going to appeal this decision, but he shouldn't have to. He wouldn't have to if the Canadian legal system operated as it should. Now think for a moment, the number of young children currently being indoctrinated in schools throughout the West to believe in feminist theory, affirmative action, white privilege, male privilege.
You're fucking a white male!
Systematic racism, or to buy into emotional rhetoric and narrative over facts. The truth is, the next generation of Marvin Zuckers are currently being groomed as we speak. So if you think things are bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is why I once again appeal to parents watching, please take the time to talk to your children, find out what they're being taught in schools, talk with their teachers. This shit is spreading like a virus and it has to stop. Our future and the future of your children depends on it. Otherwise, a social justice dystopia awaits us all.